Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker. A continuing shortage of the commonly used children's antibiotic is worrying parents as we head into the season of winter respiratory illnesses. So how serious is this shortage? Joining us to discuss is Dr. David Darrigan, medical expert and emergency medicine physician based in Texas. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Darrigan.
Thanks for having me.
What's behind the cause of there being a shortage? And really, who is it affecting?
Sure. It's really a multifaceted thing that's going on here. Children depend on certain antibiotics, especially liquid antibiotics. They can't take pills for the most part. And, their tummies can only handle certain amounts of certain things. Amoxicillin is a very popular drug that we give for many different bacterial illnesses. And unfortunately, we're seeing a huge shortage of it right now. And there's lots of different theories on why we could be short on something that's, one, easy to make and cheap to make and easy to distribute. There has been an increase in viruses and bacterial infections over the last couple of years that's caused an increase in prescriptions. But also we're seeing the manufacturing companies really aren't wanting to get their stock levels up high enough. And the theory behind that is because it's really just not a very profitable thing for them. The antibiotics are cheap, which is good for the patient. It's good for us when we're prescribing, but it's not making the pharmaceutical companies much money.
That seems so shady to me because, to create a shortage because of the greed of the manufacturers, so all of us suffer as, the patients and the customers, just seems disgusting to me. Are there any alternatives to amoxicillin?
There definitely is, but, there's certain things that amoxicillin treats for kids, especially that other antibiotics won't. If a child has strep throat, for example, that has to be treated with something like amoxicillin, or else it can cause conditions in the heart, kidneys, and even the brain. We want to make sure that it's there. There are, for different sinus infections, ear infections, we have other antibiotics that are equivalent, but it's still not right that this isn't readily available for the kids when we need it the most. And honestly, what you said is true. It is kind of discouraging. And the reason we're hearing about it now compared to other times with other medicines, I think, is because it's involving children.
I think there should be laws against that, though. There's price gouging laws like here in Florida. When a hurricane's coming through and merchants jack up the prices, it's price gouging. There's laws against that. You can't do that. It's illegal. So why isn't there the same standard against, big pharma and these drug manufacturers?
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, well, I'm not sure how deep we want to go on that. But, there's a lot of money being exchanged with policies, and that might be part of the effect that it's not really moving the needle enough because of the money behind it and who's donating to who.
Let's bring up a different point because my daughter actually developed an allergy to amoxicillin. So again, is there another alternative out there? There's got to be for those that would say
Sure.
be allergic.
Well, first we do need to recognize that we do, as providers and myself, overprescribe antibiotics. There's many reasons behind it. A lot of times these are viruses, and antibiotics do not treat viruses. They treat bacterial illnesses. But parents are worried, and part of our industry is taking care of the parents' worries and making sure that the customer, the patient, is satisfied. And there's a big trend that we see that if a family is expecting an antibiotic, even if we explain to them it's a virus and it's going to take time, if they're expecting that antibiotic and we don't give it to them, they're just going to go somewhere else the next day or make a complaint. So it does become a trend of we're giving antibiotics a lot of the times out of some pressure. We could do a better job educating and making sure that the families understand it is okay in this situation not to give an antibiotic. And, there's a happy medium where we can prescribe the antibiotic, but really encourage the parent, give the child a few days. And, Tylenol, Motrin for the fever and aches, increase fluids. And then if they're not improving, then start the antibiotics. But we do have alternatives for things, azithromycin, the different cephalosporins. Those are also reasonable price and good for different treatments.
And you said this is purely about the liquid form of amoxicillin. Is there a way parents could ground up maybe pill form amoxicillin to somehow make a liquid form?
The way it's formulated, it doesn't really translate apples to apples.
Ah.
So I wouldn't do that. There's different ways it's released in the body. A compounding pharmacy might be able to help somebody with that. They're, more skilled in making sure the dosage translates right into a liquid.
And I want to go back to what you were saying about overprescribing antibiotics. I know I personally will do everything in my power not to have to take an antibiotic until absolutely necessary. Do you think that there's ways that patients can sort of, either holistically, or I know Kimberly already asked about alternatives and things like that. To me, antibiotics should be a last resort. It shouldn't be just, oh, you have a fever. Here's a script. Go take some things and wipe out your whole microbiome. That's going to take months to, if not years, to rebuild. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's tons of things we can do to prevent. And I think we're getting better at learning about natural treatments, kind of really educating ourselves on how food can be medicine, and waiting until that last moment to see if your body is going to heal itself, or if you're having a virus. Even with sinus infections, the American Medical Association recommends not treating it with antibiotics until 3 weeks. So we're asking patients to wait 3 weeks before receiving an antibiotic. And that doesn't go in line with how we're graded as a medical community. Unfortunately, we are graded a lot on payments, hospital ratings, on patient satisfaction. And it's great to have, patients like you, Ethan, that want to wait and that are educated on that. But for every person like that, there's another patient that does want that right away. And if we try to do the right thing sometimes and explain to them and not prescribe it, it can end up penalizing us. So I think, we have to really look at the grading system for how we treat providers, physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, before we can kind of, penalize, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because we have to be aware that, building up a resistance to those things only make them less effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Especially when like you said, you have somebody who's allergic, and let's say they're allergic to one antibiotic, and then they built up a resistance to a second one. In 20 years, they have something that's going to be treated. There might not be much left.
Yeah.
See, I go back to my father always talked about, let the kids eat dirt, there's a lot that goes into, we need to be exposed to a lot of this stuff in order to build up our immune system. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the kids were a little healthier when they were playing in the sun, playing in the dirt a little bit more, picking up those, little microbes that we end up helping build our immunity and resistance for. So I'm all for that.
And so any overall advice for parents, how worried should they be? Is it a big deal that there's this shortage of amoxicillin and other antibiotics as we head into the winter season?
There's a lot of things they can do. One, I do think let's talk about talking to our legislators about, requiring some of these necessary antibiotics, even though it's not profitable. And two, prevention. We really need to learn about how we can avoid illnesses, correct hand washing techniques, proper hydration and rest. And then three, if your doctor or provider does say it's a virus, and let's take time, let's give it some time. You can always do the antibiotics later. Don't feel like a bad parent just because you're not giving your child an antibiotic because they're sick. Our bodies, have immunity, and we have a way to fight it off. Learn the warning signs on when you truly need an antibiotic or when you need to go to the ER, and find that happy medium in between to where you're self-treating at home with over-the-counter type medicines.
That's all great advice. Thank you so much, Dr. David Darrigan, for joining us on the program. Take great care.
Thanks.
Well, that wraps up this segment. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll have more after the break. Don't be screwed by lesser spine institutes who bait you with minimally invasive procedures, then switch to screws, rods, disc replacements, and hardware. At Bonati, no metal hardware fusions are ever used. Bonati invented the precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati Spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. Over half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonati succeeds where others fail. Danny is a retired administrator that loves fishing and playing sports.
I was a middle school principal in Pennsylvania County, and that's in Danville, Virginia. Enjoyed tremendously, loved kids, and had a fabulous career. Trout fishing is one of my best fun things, and I played football in high school and basketball and softball. I had back pain for a number of years. Playing softball, sliding into the bases is basically how it started. It happened over a period of time. It had to be addressed a little bit at a time. It got worse, and it's gotten worse over the last 2 or 3 years. It got to the point where that I couldn't do outside chores and things around the house after I had retired. My fishing expeditions of trout fishing, something I loved to do, I just wasn't able to do it because of the ability to be able to stand and walk through, wading through waters and being able to take care of myself and keeping my balance. And I hated to lose that part of my life. It's bad enough to get a little older. It's a big thing. It's the fact that you're getting a little older and you have pains and aches that you didn't have before. But it got worse to the point where I had to address it and couldn't deal with the pain any longer. Over a period of time, I went to see a numerous amount of doctors to see if they could do anything about it. And my pain was a lot arthritis in my back because of over the years of abusing the body. So that had to be addressed. Before surgery, I used prescription medicines and over-the-counter medicines for that fact, but it didn't do any good after a point. It got to the point where it wouldn't take care of it. I had several doctors that I talked with about doing it, and they said because I had arthritic spurs on my back that they probably wouldn't be able to be successful in having surgery, so I had to look at other ways to do it.
Believing there was nothing that could be done, Danny was losing hope of ever getting his life back. That is, until he learned about the Bonati Spine Institute while watching TV and decided to give them a call.
I didn't have any doctors in Danville that would do what Dr. Bonati does here. So I think that's the biggest reason that I came. The thing that impressed me the most about the Institute here is the fact that so many people had ideas of ways to care for you and showed you the care. A very great staff. I enjoyed meeting and being able to talk with a lot of them. We got to be friends, actually, and it's nice to know that people care.
After a thorough physical exam, Danny was sent to the on-campus imaging center for x-rays and MRIs. A few minutes later, Dr. Bonati went over the images with him to determine a customized surgical plan to eliminate his pain.
They have buildings for everything here. And they're all specific for the certain parts of the treatment that they do. So the MRI, which is something that I had never done, not an MRI that was closed loop, they assured me that it was going to be fine. And I went through my first MRI and it worked out great. And I was surprised at myself.
See how it's being squeezed? Now go here. See, it's now really squeezed. Mm-hmm. Now go there. Oh. Now it's terrible here. Now go here. Now it's better here. See the nerves now? So one of the problems that you have is back pain that goes towards your hip. Goes outside the leg, outside the calf, top of the foot. When I finish with you, you're gonna go, oh my God, I can walk, right? And we'll go one thing at a time, slowly, and every day you're gonna feel better and better and better, right? Don't get emotional on me now, I'm gonna get emotional with you.
The exclusive Bonati Spine procedures are performed incrementally using conscious IV sedation, where the patient remains awake and communicating with their surgeon to locate the source of their pain and eliminate it before they leave the operating table.
During surgery, I remember folks coming, speaking to me from the background and asking me where my pain was. And I was able to identify where that pain was coming from. I remember some folks saying, Danny, where's your pain? Where is your pain at now? And I would say, okay, it's on my left side, it's on my leg, or it's on my back. And I was able to describe in detail what was going on with me. and that helped them to be able to find out what was needed. I had several surgeries, and so it had to address different areas of pain. But after certain areas that they did the surgery on me, I could tell that there was a difference in the pain level almost immediately.
Any pain on your toe, the big toe?
Big toe.
No.
No. Okay.
Now, I want that you do a push-up. I want that you check your back. The only pain you may have is when I have the tooth here, right? But look at the all pain that was in the back. Lift yourself up,
Do
higher,
like a push-up.
higher,
Keep squeezing the arms.
higher, and go higher. No pain on the back?
A little.
Here.
And then,
Here?
yeah.
Yeah, that's the surgery.
Okay.
The pain that was going here, like this, is that pain gone?
No, it's not there.
It's not there.
All right, good.
I remember Dr. Bonati specifically stating to me, he said, "Now, Danny, I want you to walk at least a mile a day and do that consistently so your pain can be completely gone."
After a brief walk in the recovery room, surgical guests are free to return home or to a nearby hotel where they are instructed to walk a few minutes a day to aid their body in the recovery process.
The Bonati Spine Institute is a great place to find out where your pain is coming from and get it repaired. And that was the experience that I've had, and I would recommend it to anyone that wants to go there. As everything kind of settles down and this recent surgery is taken care of, I'd like to be able to get out in the yard and work and do things there that I haven't been able to do in quite a while.
Welcome to American Medicine Today. A new book is exposing how the left's net zero agenda, which is forced transition to renewable energy, is not only costly, but it is also dangerous and destined for failure. Joining us to discuss is Steve Goreham, author of The Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure. Thank you for joining us on the program, Steve.
Great to join you, Kimberly and Ethan.
Certainly. So your book really exposes the weaknesses in the planned green energy transition. Why don't you tell us more about it?
Right. So the wealthy portion of the world is embarked on a program called Net Zero. And they want to get to net zero by 2050. And by that, I mean the United States, Europe, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and a few other nations. And net zero calls for us to eliminate the carbon dioxide emissions from all of our processes. And that's from everything. That's from transportation. That's from our home heating, our electricity. They want to get rid of that. And whatever those emissions they can't reduce, then they want to try and capture them, so-called carbon dioxide capture and storage. But this is more than a reach-out goal. This is more than a wish and a prayer even. It's an impossible effort. It's not going to occur by 2050. And so this whole energy transition is going to break down. And that's what my book talks about. We're already seeing that in Europe, where they've just gone through 2 years of energy crisis because of their green policies primarily. But elections are changing things, and they're burning more coal now, and they're doing a lot of other things. So this is, since the world is marching this way, it's going to take a couple decades for this to occur. But we are going to have this green breakdown.
In my opinion, hopefully we don't go down this path because it just sounds insane. I mean, they already want to take away, gas stoves, wood burning, pizza ovens. Like, it's just
bizarre,
mind blowing. But say the U.S. and all of the citizens towed the line and said, yes, this is what we should do. What about the rest of the world? What about China? What about India? What about, South America? We can't be the only ones that are going to make a difference, right?
Well, electricity is a perfect example. If you live in the United States and you have an air conditioner in your house, that air conditioner by itself uses more electricity than a third of the world's people get to use every day. We have in the United States one vehicle for every person, roughly. It's about one for every 25 people in India and in Africa. And so these nations are going to continue to develop. They're going to continue to use hydrocarbon fuels, emit carbon dioxide. And then we've got things like AI, artificial intelligence, which is going to use 10 times the electricity within about 5 years in our data centers that we use today. So this whole idea of get rid of these emissions, go to net zero, it's just not going to occur. And so we're going to have this ongoing battle over energy for a decade or two.
The left is so obsessed with this Green New Deal, but most of them don't even grasp how it's doomed to fail. Explain why it's doomed to fail.
Well, again, it's what the green breakdown is going to cause is higher electricity prices, because when you go to wind and solar, it costs more. You have to back them up with other systems. California is a perfect example. In the last 3 years, the electricity prices in California have surpassed New England, and they're now the second highest in the nation besides Hawaii. Electricity in California is twice as high as any other Western state. We're gonna have electricity blackouts. We've seen those in Texas and Oklahoma and California in the last 2 years. In February 2021, they had 5 million people that had electricity off for 72 hours. And the estimates are that 700 people died from that effort, from that blackout. That's more than a large hurricane. We're going to have less freedom. We now have the president in many states trying to ban gasoline vehicles, force people to drive EVs, which are going to be more expensive to buy. They're going to be hard to charge and not good for long distances.
We all know it takes power to charge these vehicles, and they're hard to come by. They've also done studies where if one block all drove these vehicles and were trying to charge them, it would take out the electrical grid. I mean, how stupid can these places be? Maybe that's why they're having their blackouts in California, because all of the Californians decided they wanted to go green in an effort to try to do something nice.
Yep. That's part of it. California gets about 20% of its electricity from solar in August until the sun goes down, about 6 or 7 o'clock. Then if you have anything, the solar goes away. If you have anything else that fails, you have a system fail. But they've closed all of their coal plants, they've reduced their natural gas consumption, and they've closed all except one nuclear plant. And earlier this year, I think it was about May, Governor Newsom said, well, we're going to ban all gasoline cars by 2035. And that very same week, they issued an alert saying, don't plug in your electric vehicle. We don't have enough electricity. In the last 2 months in Texas, we have 10 electricity shortage alerts from ERCOT, the electricity manager, where they said, don't run your air conditioners, don't plug in your electric cars. So we have to get away from these intermittent electricity sources, get back to traditional sources, reliable power, and the more we try and go renewables, the more this is going to occur. The two leading ports in the U.S. are, I think, the Long Beach and Los Angeles. They want all cargo to be picked up by electric trucks within about 4 or 5 years. And there aren't any electric trucks, and there isn't any charging for them.
And yet their state remains bankrupt. This is amazing. All of these things which should be lending to less money is costing them more.
Just another symptom of the coming green breakdown.
Yeah, it's all talking points that sound all warm and fuzzy to make the world feel like they're doing something important without really thinking about how it's going to have a crippling effect in their area and, well, throughout the country, because that's the agenda they're pushing.
When I talk to friends of mine who are liberal lefties and they say, oh, it's all about saving the planet. I'm all for saving the planet, but let's be realistic about it. I mean, there's like hundreds of thousands of pounds of earth that needs to be excavated in order to make one of those batteries.
Right. They're not very environmentally friendly. The cobalt, the leading producer of cobalt is the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they're using forced labor and child labor. They pull the ore out of the mines, then it goes to China to be refined into cobalt, and they have vast areas that have been polluted. They have a place called Rare Earth Lake. You look for miles and miles that's been polluted by metal tailings. And then it comes to the United States in a battery so that people can drive their Tesla. But EVs are not very environmentally friendly.
It's insane.
It seems like the biggest
it's a scam.
Game and scam that's being perpetuated on the public.
And then we're going to have transnational energy shocks. That's the fourth thing that's causing green breakdown. They've had that in Europe in the last 2 years. Energy bills in England have gotten to be a couple $1,000s a winter for people. I mean, they're very, very high. And it's because they've gone with green wind and solar, and they've gotten rid of traditional fuels. we are going to see people push back on this, and they're going to demand low-cost, reliable energy again, and it's going to be crazy to watch all this develop. So, if people need to. They need to look and get a copy of Green Breakdown if they use electricity, if they've got a gas stove, if they've got a gasoline car. Find out what's going on, and they need to push back on their political leaders and say, hey, why do you want to raise my energy prices? I want to keep my gas stove. I want to keep my gasoline car. Isn't there a way we can do that? Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of hardship for everyone going forward.
But thank you for shedding light on this, Steve Gorman. Thank you for being on the program.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm pleased. Anytime in the future, I'm at your service.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Take great care. Well, that's all the time we have for this show. Make sure you join us again next week. If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the numbers below. Or you can tweet at Dr. Bonati using the hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.